Yeah,
nice.
your
All
bright,
right.
shining face. Better, better, better there than on milk cartons, like you say. But
That's right. That's right. So, but it's been a busy week as usual, man. How about your week?
yeah, it's been pretty busy here too. So far, it's Wednesday. We're in the middle of it.
Hmm. Exactly.
We got
I've been watching
the
for.
Great Conspiracy and Roger restreaming us. I forgot to mention Great Conspiracy earlier. Thank you, Great Conspiracy, and appreciate your restreaming as always.
It's
What do we got
much
for
better than
What do we got for tonight, Jack?
the crazy world of canine cryptids. That's our
Woo!
main topic
We're not
tonight.
we're not going to need flea collars and you know rabies shots handy for folks, are we?
Oh, we got a bone to pick with this mystery. We've got a flea to scratch.
A flea to scratch. Did you get a
So,
chance to
but
go over any of those links I sent you in Facebook?
I have not. Um, just because this week has been
Yeah, you've
dealing with
been
sick
really
people.
busy. And
I
hey,
have been.
awesome picture. I seen that one that you put up. I didn't. I'm sure you put other ones up as well. That one looks awesome.
Is that the last one I did? The blue and
It's the one with the
white
lady
and
in it. Yep.
yeah, yeah, the dance. So,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Looks really great.
Thank you very much.
You got 30 seconds, and then we'll get you going.
Excellent. I've been watching The Fright Club all day. Have you been watching that at all?
I heard that the ship went up today, but here's your countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're live and on the radio side right now, Jack.
Everybody to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. We're the radio show broadcasting from 300 feet deep in abandoned nuclear missile silo somewhere lost in the post-apocalyptic badlands of the Dakota Territories. And I'm joined, as usual, by the paranormal crime-fighting duos Daisy and the Sundance Kid are riding shotgun tonight. High above us, somewhere roaming about, are the crazy human mutant monsters from the movie The Hills Have Eyes. So we caught a glimpse of them the other day. They are grotesque indeed, and hunkered down here in the missile silo with the crime-fighting duo. I'm able to kind of analyze what's going on the upper world. And this week, it was going through my head all of the crazy canine cryptids in cryptozoology land. So I decided to make that tonight's topic, the crazy world of canine cryptids. That's going to be our main topic this evening. We'll be discussing about everything from the crazy human mutant monsters from the movie The Hills Have Eyes. So we caught a glimpse of them the other day. They are grotesque indeed, and hunkered down here in the missile silo with the crime-fighting duo. I'm able to, kind of analyze what's going on the upper world. And this week, it was going through my head all of the crazy canine cryptids in cryptozoology land. So I decided to make that tonight's topic, the crazy world of canine cryptids. That's going to be our main topic this evening. We'll be discussing everything from the dire wolf to the Shura Warrican to the, Dogman and beyond. So what creatures lurk in the shadows, watching us all the time? That's what we're going to be talking about. Was able to actually come across some undeniable Dogman footage in the years I spent out there in the field. This actually came from another field investigator who didn't know they had even captured the images. We'll be talking about that tonight. We'll be talking about the Lakewood Lichen case and a few other Dogman cases I had the honor to work on with the late, great J.C. Johnson. And also, we've got some few just kind of updates in the paranormal news world. For example, the missing general that I have been discussing, the Major General McKesson, is still missing. So as far as I know, he has been disappeared, and so has a female rocket scientist who was somehow tied to the general, who also disappeared under the exact same circumstances. Few items missing from their home, indicating they may have gone hiking. No, nothing else. They just vanished. And the lady vanished long before the general did, the scientist. That's interesting. So I wouldn't say long, but before him by a number of months. And then he goes missing. I wonder what the two of them collectively knew together. And in this day and age of Donald Trump saying, release the UFO files to the Pentagon and all of the UFO congressional hearings and the whistleblowers and the scientists talking on all the podcasts dealing with the UFO phenomenon. Might the late general, because I don't believe he's alive anymore, but might the late general have known something he was going to try to tell all book about? That's what I suspect, and I suspect that fact became known. He probably applied to be able to release the material because that's what you have to do when you're talking about classified type material, and that probably was enough for the boys in black, the so-called men in black, the ex-protect guys that are the embedded intelligence agents and assassins in the United States aerospace industry that have been embedded ever since Roswell, are the ones. They are the ex-protect. They are able to operate in such a way that they can take these people out and do it without leaving a single clue as to what happened to them. Many investigators, including dark journalists and myself, believe that it was ex-protect that probably was also responsible for the Kennedy assassination. That might sound insane to some people, but not when we have a memo from Alan Dulles, the active CIA director at the time, stating that they could not allow Lancelot to get his hands on the UFO files. That was a semi-burned memo found in his fireplace, which is very interesting. And Lancelot was the code name for Kennedy. Kennedy, a week before his assassination, requested all UFO files, and he had the intent of sharing them with the Soviet Union in an effort to achieve peace between the two. The idea was to introduce an outside force, an outside enemy, and say, look, let's work together on this phenomenon, and that way we can be peaceful. But the powers that be, the ex-protect guys, the United States aerospace industry, the dark, shadowy world, where that industry collides with the military machine, that world that collides with the military industrial complex, and with military contracts. That's the dark world, the place where the stew for all of this conspiracy and active conspiracy takes place. And we're not conspiracy theorists on this show. We are conspiracy analysts, as the late, great Gore Vidal once said. We analyze actual conspiracies taking place in the world. But I digress. That kind of led us off in an interesting direction. But I suspect it was X-Protect, and so does many other ufologists that I'm familiar with. They all think that the good general has been done in, let's say. So, and we got interesting news with the new trip to the moon. It'll be interesting to see if they divulge any information. They will be in their path. They'll be going around to the dark side of the moon before they complete their mission. So it'll be interesting to see if they see any flashes of light or lit up cities or bases or anything like that. That would be fascinating, right? There should be cameras running at all times, but we know how that is. NASA is never a straight answer. So we'll see. We'll see what how this whole thing goes with this new spacecraft that they have constructed, the Artemis 2. So that's also kind of paranormal in the news. Really, the paranormal also runs into the scientific world often, and that's kind of where we're at with the Artemis 2 mission. It's interesting the Chinese did have a rover up there. I also often wonder what the rover discovered when it was up there, but now it's a race to see who can colonize the moon first and effectively weaponize space. That's really what it comes down to. I read an interesting book once upon a time about the invention of the gun and how that led to all kinds of breakthroughs in civilization. So that's interesting that we're kind of at a point where, we're seeing another example of that. We're seeing another example of warlike behavior, going to be what's responsible for us actually colonizing our moon. So, interesting parallax view on that, right? So, this week's been an interesting week in the markets. We do cover that because of its collision with the cyber prophecies and, the upswing of the long foretold Kali Yuga, the periodic planetary cyclical motion that we go through that takes us up through golden ages and back down around through dark ages. And we have come up out of the last dark age and beginning to see the light, as it were, of our galactic center. And with that, we get all kinds of biological benefits, but it doesn't come without a bit of a shock, and it doesn't come without many people sort of feeling a new weird energy taking effect around the planet and with biological life itself. You can kind of feel it in the people around you. At least I do. And it's interesting that it's so noticeable. There is a thing called the Schumann resonance indicator, and that's something that that many people are familiar with, but that would be an indication that you can kind of follow that, and whenever that pegs to the upside, that's always an indication of some kind of strange shock taking place to the human psyche, right? And that kind of coincides with a lot of the cyber prophecies foretold by the WebBot and Clip-Eye's algorithmic equations that were able to harness, if you will, the collective psychic energy of the human species by analyzing speech patterns. That's pretty cool stuff. And the place where science runs into the paranormal world, right? It's revealed many, many interesting insights into the materium around us, and a lot of those insights are coming true now, and I refer to them on this show as the cyber prophecies, and that's kind of what we're dealing with. Right now, we're seeing the emergence of so-called sci-fi worlds, something the Webbot prophesied a long time ago. And with that, you're probably going to see a lot of UFO secrets become known to the public, along with actual technology beginning to benefit the populace of the world that was back engineered from alien technology. You have to remember that everything starts off as a military invention or utilization of some kind, and then that technology tends to trickle down into society in a non-military way. For instance, night vision. You know, once upon a time, only the military had night vision. Now you can buy any kind of awesome night vision rifle scope you can possibly afford, right? They're out there, military quality. So thermal cameras, drones, you name it. We could go down the list. The list goes on and on and on of technology that started off with military applications, because that's always the way it works in society, and then it slowly trickles down. It won't be any different with the alien technology. It's just taken them a really long time to effectively weaponize it. That's really what we're down to with it. You know, we're dealing, according to their testimony, with a technology which can bend time and space, and therefore reality, right? How do you begin to weaponize something like that? That's really kind of what's at the heart of them attempting to weaponize this thing. But presumably, if you can project or create your own gravity, you can create weapons of amazing destruction. And that's presumably what these craft are able to do. So we'll have to see how that progresses, the weaponization of alien technology. And if we're to listen to a lot of the insiders, the whistleblowers out there, they're indicating that these things are possibly, they're possibly interdimensional in nature. So it could be that we're actually in possession of something that didn't even originate in this reality matrix. That's hard to even wrap our brains around, isn't it? But it's true. So, but all of this was prophesied, and it's prophesied at the same time as major economic kind of upheaval takes place. The upheaval is basically the so-called death of the fiat currency system. I don't expect apocalyptic like stuff like entire banks imploding and that kind of thing. I think what you're seeing right now is them adapting to the new technologies that are out there and turning everything into digital. And I think that's going to allow them to evolve in such a way that you're not going to see an implosion of the old system as much as you're going to see an evolving of the old system into the new. That's kind of the way things work. Revolutions always become a mixture of the old and the new. History has proven that time and time again, and I don't think that this particular revolution will prove any different than that. The old powers that be just have a way of also evolving into the new powers that be. It's unfortunate for us that that's the case, but and basically we're at a place where we should begin to see massive change, and that's really kind of what we have been seeing, right? So the interesting thing is, and I'm kind of watching the markets as we talk here. You're seeing the United States dollar actually begin to weaken at a time when the cryptocurrency, like Clarity bills about to act, go into active, they're about to pass that. If they pass the Clarity Act, that's going to open up a vast amount of like 401k kind of funds to flow in, and that kind of funds are tough to, they're tough to fight against when that kind of money flow comes in. It's interesting, but it's tough to fight that. And, it just absorbs selling pressure because it's wave after wave of retirement kind of money. And that may fulfill the prophecy of these things overtaking fiat currencies. So there is things in the works that are kind of like that. But that seemed to be a manifestation of those prophecies taking place. And a lot of the prophecies have to do with the revealing of secrets, and we are seeing a lot of that tend to take place as we're going forward in time. We have to remember that groups like the Future Forecasting Group, headed up by Dick Algier, and really the best remote viewers that are out there in the world, is interesting because they blindly targeted a lot of the prophecies foretold by the WWOW and ended up corroborating them using double-blind remote viewing. That's pretty good stuff if you're into paranormal information gathering or intelligence gathering. That's really good stuff. So, and where does that leave us right now? Well, we're kind of in a weird spot with the war in Iran. The war in Iran is causing the Straits of Hormuz to be congested because they're attacking the oil tankers that are sailing through there. That controls a huge percentage of the oil that goes around the world, not so much to us, but to Europe and Asia and Russia and places like that. And that in turn has pushed the price of oil way up. Probably not forever. But when that happens, it begins to affect the probabilities of interest rate cuts and hikes, right? Because it affects inflation. And interest rate cuts and hikes affect treasury yields. And treasury yields are what determine the value of the US dollar. When the US dollar goes up, gold goes down. When the US dollar goes down, gold goes up. Period. There is a perfect inverse relationship because the US dollar is the reserve currency around the world, and gold has always been used as a hedge against it. Nothing has changed in that world. So we are kind of at a spot where we're wise to monitor the strength and or lack of strength on the US dollar, because you're going to see a lot of indications by monitoring that these cyber prophecies are beginning to actually manifest and take effect, right? So that's kind of where we're at. We do have a lot of really interesting information in the paranormal world for people that have been paying attention to all of the scientists involved at the Pentagon and in the Pentagon's UFO programs, who have been on many podcasts. They're out there all the time talking. And if you're willing to listen, they have a lot to tell you about what they know. And I listen to what they have to say. So we'll be discussing a little bit of that. Gary Nolan, the great scientist from Stanford, is the gentleman that is investigating the ill health effects caused by interaction with UFOs. For some reason, they can't really ascertain. People that are involved with UFO research and who have even like sightings of UFOs end up coming down with exotic forms of cancer. Recently, I was notified that my good friend Nick Pope, the ex-Ministry of Defense agent for the UK's UFO program, has a terminal inoperable cancer, and I often wonder, and I'm sure he is too, whether or not that had to do with the fact that he was involved with UFO research and all of that for so long. Gary Nolan was actually contracted by the U.S. government to, in fact, study military personnel and U.S. government personnel involved in the UFO program that all began to exhibit the same kind of symptoms that you get from Havana syndrome. And we know now that Havana syndrome is actually caused by a auditory weapon that was developed by Russian intelligence. That is known to the U.S. government. It is some kind of acoustic weapon that is able to fry your brain using sound waves and cause massive, massive brain damage. And they have been targeting our intelligence agents around the world with this weapon, and it turns out that a lot of the same kind of damage that they see in Havana syndrome, they also see identically in people involved in the UFO research. Fascinating, right? On top of that, it was brought to my attention yet again the shape-shifting nature of the UFO phenomenon. It is a shapeshifter extraordinaire. The UFO phenomenon is a house of mirrors with a quicksand floor. It is full of misinformation, disinformation, intelligence operatives, and at the same time, it is telling us something really interesting about our reality. And by that, I mean the great ship sightings of the 1800s. You can go back in time and you can examine all of these different so-called alien encounters, and the technology that they seem to encounter seems to be just out of reach of where we are as a society. Just out of reach. And that's a weird, weird aspect of this whole phenomenon, because in the 1800s, people had sightings of so-called airships. These were blimps or zeppelins that had figures that were riding around on big platforms underneath them, and it sounded like parties going on and all kinds of crazy stuff like that at a time when flight had never even been achieved. But we would achieve it very soon after that, and there would be blimps. How do we explain that kind of aspect of the overall UFO phenomenon? I don't know. But as soon as we come back after this break, we're going to examine the crazy world of canine cryptids.
All right, we're on radio break, Jack.
Ooh.
Great stuff. Last night I watched Richard Dolan. He was saying the same thing about USOs.
Oh, really?
Yep. And he actually put a scale together, so check what he's been doing.
Okay.
He's got some really interesting numbers, I should say, about them, especially about the USOs.
And he was saying, and he was indicating a shape-shifting aspect to them?
No, patterns about the technology. Okay. You were talking about the technology just out of reach.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's also talked a little bit about what was it? There was so much that he had in in that presentation. I'm not sure who he was doing it for, but it was really cool. But most of it talked about technology. Oh, times, sighting times. Most
Oh
sighting
yeah.
times now have switched from uh, like the 70s was equal day and night. Now it's switched to more night.
Interesting.
And he believes the reason for that with the USOs is because of our satellite systems didn't come online until like 70s or mid 70s.
Right. That makes sense. Well, and another indication we're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
a real phenomenon.
Yeah,
So,
and that they would be able to detect them easier in the daytime than at night because of the type of satellites they were.
right.
Yeah, that it was really interesting.
That's really cool.
If you look him up, it was the very last one that he did. Should be, unless he
Okay.
put one out
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, I'll watch that tonight. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's a good 40 minutes plus. So make sure you have
Wow.
time for that.
Okay.
Most of the
Yeah,
stuff I
like
sent you, is usually like 30 to 40 minutes long.
I'll check all that stuff out tonight because I'll be painting in my studio and I'll just be playing it all.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of it, especially, well, some of the stuff you might want to turn to see, especially when it deals with the numbers and how he made his scales and things like that. Yeah, you know, I like Dolan, but not everything that Dolan does. But I think he's on to something. I really do. I don't think anybody else has done anything like this or put that much research into it.
exactly. And because he's like approaches it from a historian record,
Yes, I, I like
it is,
I like him because of that. You know,
yeah,
um,
yeah, me
and
too.
he does. Yeah, he'll reach out sometimes, but he's pretty solid on the ground most of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most of the time. Yeah.
yep.
So
I
I
don't
like that.
I don't always agree with how he feels about the politics stuff of it, but anyways, we got about 30 seconds. But other than that, yeah, I think he's on to something. He'd be great to get on the show if you could get him.
Oh man, that would be like getting a
Jimmy.
superstar.
Yeah, well, I got you. Come on now. Here's your countdown,
Yes.
Jack. 5,
Okay.
4, 3, 2, 1, and you're back live and on the radio side right now.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. I'm your host, Jack Carey. I've got a face for milk cartons and a voice for smell-o-vision. And tonight we're talking about the crazy world of canine cryptids. So that's our main topic. We were having a very good discussion on the weaponization of UFO technology along with the shape-shifting aspect of the phenomenon itself. And I'll add, before we turn our attention to the cryptid world, one little interesting tidbit that seems to be a connection to all of that, and that is that Gary Nolan reported, Dr. Gary Nolan, the scientist I previously mentioned as studying the brain damage in UFO witnesses, he recounted that he has a family of eyewitnesses that were all riding together in some kind of a station wagon-like car. This car had a see-through roof on it, and they were driving down a remote stretch of road, of course, as you might imagine, and they were approached by a UFO. The UFO actually caused apotheum effects in the car. Apotheum effects are things like changing the time on the clock and the radio station and missing time and that kind of thing. Those are apotheum effects, things that seem almost magical about this phenomenon. And what's interesting is that everybody in the car, and there were like 5 of them, reported seeing a massive craft fly over the car, right? Except for one witness. One witness in the car, 1 out of the 5, didn't see that at all. What they saw was a tiny little orb of light go over the car. And that might be an indication, a view behind the curtain of the real phenomenon. Is this something that is planetary based, pretending to be something else? It's a question I'll leave for you to think about when you go to sleep tonight and are looking for something to dream about. Think about that little interesting tidbit. Is this something that is innate to the planet that is pretending to be something it's not? Well, the crazy world of canine cryptids. That's an interesting topic because I was contemplating this week a few of the cases I had worked on, and what was interesting was that when I started writing down all the various cryptids, there were a ton that are canine based. And there seems to be a big difference between, let's say, the Shura Warrican of Montana fame, the creature that the Native Americans referred to as that which carries away dogs, and which they have a body of in a museum in Montana. An actual body of one of these creatures was actually shot, and it is in a museum in Montana. And nobody knows what it is. It appears to have been a species, maybe that was coming down from Canada. Kind of looks to me, when you look at the pictures of it, like a canine-headed razorback. You know what a razorback is? Because I grew up in the South, and those woods are full of them, right? Big tusk on those pigs, and they can weigh hundreds of pounds, and they are vicious when they come out. Like little torpedoes, they'll come right at you. And this thing kind of looked like a weird version of that with a canine head on it. You can find it online, pictures of the Shara Warrican, and it is an interesting animal to behold. But then my attention turned to the South Texas chupacabra. Here we have a completely different canine cryptid, right? The chupacabra, of course, means, in Mexican it means goat sucker, and many of them have literally exsanguinated their victims. That's what's interesting about this new species of canine, is that there's a veterinarian in Texas who actually has the body of one of these chupacabras, and they were able to, fully dissect this thing and look at it. And it is a insane animal to look at. It really is. It looks like something out of a laboratory experiment of some kind. And so it's interesting that it even exists, much less appears to have the ability to suck the blood out of its victims. It doesn't eat the meat. anybody who knows anything about biology knows that there's only one other animal on the planet that can exist that way, and that's the vampire bat. And it took the vampire bat eons of time to evolve a system by which it can get by or exist solely on the blood of other animals. How do we explain a newly emergent canine species that appears to have popped into existence out of nowhere and has the same evolved ability to live off of blood the way a vampire bat does? It's a good question. And on top of that, you have the early chupacabras sightings and witness sketches and reports, and they don't look like a canine at all. That creature looks like a flying gray alien with spikes down its back, bat wings and stuff like that. It's crazy. So you have the Shurawarrican historical cryptid. You have the chupacabra of South Texas and, of course, of South America. And my good friend Ken Gerhard, who might be listening out there, will tell you that from his travels down to South America, he was able to discover that chupacabra is kind of a catch-all term for any cryptid, weirdo, paranormal-like animal. So it could be that's why you have those early depictions of an animal that may be completely different than the so-called chupacabra that's found in South Texas. So we also have a report coming out of Skinwalker Ranch and the scientists that are there that they were able to recover the fleshy body of a dire wolf that died on the ranch. Dire wolves haven't been around for thousands and thousands of years, and wolves, period, aren't found in the Uinta Basin. Yet, at Skinwalker Ranch, we are constantly reminded, because of their sightings, of the fact that these wolf-like creatures have been seen on that ranch time and time again, even attacking cattle at one point. So that is very interesting stuff. The dire wolf, of course, has also been reported by some hunters in the really vast distances and forest of Alaska. They weren't able to document these creatures. They were seen from a helicopter, but they were huge wolves running in packs. So, very interesting. It could be, and scientists are speculating, that Skinwalker Ranch has an interdimensional portal on it. Could it be that these animals are somehow manifesting out of that interdimensional portal? And could it be that cryptid animals, period, UFO phenomenon? There is stuff UFO reported around most cryptid activity. And I don't mean animals like the emergent chupacabra, but I definitely mean animals like the dogman and Sasquatch and all of the main creatures that we examine in cryptozoology world. All of those have a accompanying array of UFO type activity that seems to go along with them. And the scientists at the Pentagon are studying what they call the hitchhiker effect, which is a wide array of paranormal activity that seems to, well, it seems to piggyback the UFO phenomenon. And that's interesting because I'm having to plug in my computer system here, Mark, so bear with me for a second. But the piggybacking is really interesting because even in uh, cases like the farmer that's near the Beast of Bray Road has reported time and time again that he, who has seen the Beast of Bray Road many times, is also seen UFO activity nonstop accompanying the Beast of Bray Road. So what are we to make of that kind of stuff? Could it be that these cryptid animals are a kind of like avatar, if you will, for the phenomenon itself? Are they able to traverse like the landscape in such a way that the aliens can't, and they're scary enough nobody bothers them? And you know, we have to entertain all kinds of exotic theories when we talk about things like Dogman. But so you have creatures that seem commonplace in our biological world, like the Sherrowurk, like the chupacabra of South Texas, like the dire wolf. And then, of course, you have the woo animals. And the woo animals are an interesting topic because that has to do with, of course, Dogman. And Dogman's an interesting topic because there is a vast amount of ancient lore about dog-headed, human-bodied creatures. Or, you know, basically having the body of a upright walking bipedal creature. Excuse me. Even the late great Marco Polo reported having run into a place that he referred to as cynocephaly. You can find that online. And cynocephaly was supposed to be an island that was completely peopled with dog-headed creatures, and they openly traded with them. That's fascinating. What are we to make of that kind of historical tale, right? And then you have all the way to modern day times, the breaking of the story of the Beast of Bray Road by the great Linda Godfrey. And Linda Godfrey reported in her book, Real Wolfmen of North America, that she was contacted by a man who worked for the CIA as a remote viewer. And that this gentleman relayed to her that they had, in fact, done remote viewings on the Dogman phenomenon and mystery, and that they were able to determine that these creatures were somehow constructed. They were chimeras constructed by an alien intelligence, that they wore a type of bio armor under their fur. It was literally engineered into them, right? That they also possessed a kind of technology, these little spheres that they carry around, these black balls, and these black spheres allow them to project themselves from one area to another. That's interesting because in the book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, Dr. Colm Kelleher and the other scientists involved investigating the hitchhiker effect recount that Dogman encounter was part of the hitchhiker effect. That one of the intelligence agents working at Skinwalker Ranch had a Dogman encounter occur on their property 1,000 miles away in Virginia. How are we to make any logical sense of how that is able to take place? We were just told by the CIA to Linda Godfrey that, in fact, these creatures are able to project themselves using a type of alien technology they possess. Did this thing project itself somehow to this intelligence agent's property while he was still at Skinwalker Ranch in order to menace the family? I don't know the answer to that, but it's a question we have to ask. And on top of that, you have the farmer that owns the land all along Bray Road who has seen these Dogman creatures, right? And he hides cameras in his fields. And what does he pick up? He picks up UFO activity. Then he picks up tracks of the creature. He tries to bait the creature. He has sightings of the creature. He tries to bait it with the carcass of a dead deer. And what happens right in front of the camera? A fog forms in the middle of the field. The fog is thick, and it slowly makes its way over the carcass of the deer, and then it begins to dissipate. And when it dissipates, the carcass is gone. All of that has to be part of the same phenomenon. All of it. There's no way they're just randomly as a dogman running around in an area that has nonstop UFO activity, cattle mutilations, huge canine prints being left, and it all not be related in some way, shape, or form. That, my friends, is the hitchhiker effect. And it's something I've experienced on a personal level. We once investigated a dogman encounter in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, in a place called Lakewood, and it was known as the Lakewood Lichen case. And in this particular case, we were able to identify a natural occurring woodland area that this could have made it from the mountains down into this neighborhood. But this gentleman went out with a sick dog in an affluent neighborhood with a walled backyard. And while he's there with his sick dog at 3 a.m., he hears a noise. He turns to look, and there is a dogman in his yard. It turns and looks at him. It takes 3 bounds and makes it over a 10-foot brick wall in a single bound. That would be interesting given the fact that this gentleman wanted absolutely no publicity whatsoever, was very reticent to tell a story, and he was a graphic artist. He was able to draw us amazing pictures of what he saw. He then really kind of sold all of his possessions and went on a worldwide kind of sabbatical. And that's really been the key for finding, well, it's the key to knowing that you found somebody who's actually experienced something truly paranormal, because often they will go on to make profound life changes. And that's what occurred to this gentleman. It just so happens a few weeks after that, a young couple reported seeing running across the highway very nearby a upright running dog-headed creature that bounded up into the mountains. Interesting. So what are we to make of this hitchhiker connection to the UFO phenomenon, the dogman connection to the UFO phenomenon, and even though this is about canine cryptids, the Sasquatch connection to the UFO phenomenon? How is it that all of those things are connected to the UFO phenomenon in some way, shape, or form? And with Sasquatch, I mean at least 20% of all credible Bigfoot or Sasquatch encounters involve the witness seeing a UFO in the sky at the time. That's a big number, guys. That's a big number, and the witnesses are every bit as sincere as the ones who report seeing a Sasquatch without a UFO nearby. You can actually take UFO and Bigfoot sightings and lay them on a map. You can do it even today. I've done it many times. Take a nearby or the closest Bigfoot report that you can find and mark it on a map, and I guarantee you, sooner or later, an article will appear about a UFO sighting in that same area. It happens time and time and time again. It was the late, great Jonathan Keel of Mothman Prophecy fame who discovered that statistic about 20% of the UFO and Bigfoot sightings taking place together. So then you have the alien abductee phenomenon, and what did they report? the same thing. Cryptid animals being in the presence of these alien creatures and of their craft. It is the craziest mystery, and people thought cryptozoology was just about identifying unknown species that occur naturally in our biological sphere, and it's actually anything but that. The Really, the heart of cryptozoology today is in trying to ascertain the difference between the cryptid animals that are naturally occurring on this planet and the ones that are either interdimensional and or have a UFO connection to them. So that is really kind of where we're stuck in the cryptozoology world. And until we're able to kind of turn that corner to ascertain exactly which are which, we're not going to be able to invent metrics, tools by which to measure the phenomenon. And it's only through the measurement of the phenomenon that we can have a scientific understanding of what it is we're really dealing with. So this whole thing seems to have a shape-shifting aspect to it, right? And you have also in the cryptozoology world, the world of shapeshifters. And often these creatures are said to shapeshift into canine species. Then you have things that are completely different and that are reported, like devil dogs. The so-called devil dogs have been reported many times, and they appear to have some kind of spiritual connection to them, coming from the ghostly realm, if you will, and manifesting in our reality to wreak havoc for a while before they disappear again into the ghostly realm. That's something that has happened around the world, particularly in England and Ireland and the UK period. So, and then we have what appears to be a very strange lineage of people on this planet that have the genes, the DNA, the ability to maybe not even control it, but to shift into a canine-like creature. And I'm talking about the werewolf phenomenon. And yeah, there have been real cases of werewolves reported. They appear to be very sparsely reported, but all of the cases I've investigated dealing with actual werewolves appears to indicate to me that all of them come from bloodlines that go back to old Europe. One in particular that I'm aware of had roots going back to ancient Romania. I'm not sure where that leads us in the werewolf phenomenon, but they all seem to have a lineage going back to that area of Europe, which is very interesting to me. And next week, you'll have to join us. We will be examining yet another crazy rabbit hole on this show. We examine the architecture of the rabbit hole. We don't claim to have any hard and fast, completely true answers, but it's in the examination of all of the architecture around us in each of these rabbit holes that we will find that truth. And join me next week and we'll examine another paranormal mystery. And until then, I will see you on the radio.
Great job, Jack. Great job.
Thanks.
Let me get this going here. And once this is, I get Zach going on his side, we continue with Nancy.
Hey.
There we go. All right. Thanks, Jack. Great show. Hope you have some fun looking that stuff up and listening to it.
Yep.
Yep. And like I said, Jeff Nadalny would be great to have if you can get him too. He's talked about some shape shifting dogmen that look like deer at first and then shapeshift into the dogman, or yeah, it's kind of a camouflage thing that one of his witnesses described. But I gotta get, and I know you probably do too.
Yes, sir. But I will be listening to that stuff tonight while I'm painting. So
Sounds good. All right. You take care,
Hey.
Jack, and I will catch
You
up
as
with you later on. I'll
all
get
right.
this up
Thank you,
and
sir.
out as well.
Okay, cool.
All
Bye.
right. Bye. All right. That was Jack Carey with the Paranormal Intelligence Agency. Coming up right now. This right now is the Vixen's Vault kind of few minute pre show that we do. We'll get them up and going here in just a minute. Let me switch us over on Teams. No, Teams on OBS. Let's see what we got here. Legion of Chaos. That's right. The Legion. And let's go ahead and join up with them right about now.
Very, very big contract, and it's like driving me nuts because she calls me, even though I tell her you cannot call me during this time period.
Oh,
Oh no. Period. Oh.
it's
Vic,
emergency.
how are you feeling, Vicky, you wench? Happy birthday!
Thank you. It was a couple of weeks ago on the 19th.
Oh,
I hope that was a good day for you.
I was like, wait a minute, it's her birthday. Where is she? Damn it! So I sent you a text, and then I slammed her Facebook. Happy birthday! Oh, did you enjoy it at least?
Yes, I did. It was a good day. I was
Oh,
pleasantly. We went to see that what's that movie? Uh with Ryan Gosling in it. Hail Mary.
oh,
Yeah.
oh! How was it?
It was different than the book. The book's supposed to be better, but I liked it. It was enjoyable. Of course,
Nice.
I just thought it was, prescient that it was, that alien movie, outer space,
Oh,
with things going on.
nice.
I don't think if I'm on here, I don't think I'm on with you
You're on.
guys. Am I?
We
Okay.
can hear you.
30 seconds.
Okay. I couldn't get the screen.
Oh, that's all right. Now I can't find my chat. Damn it. Urgh.
I'm on
I
the
hate
chat
when
and
that
can't find the
happens.
regular page.
Oh, God. There it is. Got it.
And here's
Where
your
the heck is
countdown.
Heropolis?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you're live and on the radio side right now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Vixen's Vault. This is actually a recording. No, just joking. April Fool's Day. Today is April 1st, 2026. We are into the beginning of April. We're in Passover week. We are in Easter week. And it seems like, everybody's in overdrive. Constant craziness going on. Tonight, actually, I was able to catch the Artemis 2 launching. It was actually a beautiful launch. Kind of cool because where I'm located on the West Coast, I've got, I look east, and that's, obviously towards the Cape. And it was clear skies, beautiful, like crystalline blue, little wispy clouds. But if you look to the west, it was like, it was all clouds. So it was perfect. I thought, wow, it's kind of awesome because the clouds are coming in from the Gulf. So that's our west, and they haven't made it to the east yet. So yeah, it was cool because got a really great shot. You could actually see the afterburners as she was going up. I prefer the night launches and the dawn launches because I can see the fire coming out of the afterburners, and that is a wicked cool sight to behold. But this was kind of cool. We actually, when I zoomed in really close, I was actually able to see her drop her boosters, and that's always a really cool thing. The sky was so clear, so it was just like I said, it was very interesting, very cool. I had to smack my grandkids around a little bit via text message because, yeah, they were on their gaming systems. I'm like, go outside and look up, idiots. This is your future. This is like history. This is like, granted, they're not going to land on the moon, but, this is the first time we've even tried to get up towards that direction since, I don't know, the early 1970s. So, and, how many of us have actually asked the question why we never went back to the moon? Because I have my own theories on that. Um, I am a person who believes it's kind of like CERN. I think we pissed off certain things when we went to the moon, and I think we pissed off certain things when we flipped CERN on. So yeah, I think it's interesting we're going back. I am not a person who I am not a put it this way. I do believe we have been to the moon. I don't think that was a Hollywood production. I do believe we actually did send people up there. I only believe that because my father worked on the space program. And I know my dad really well. And I know what type of a thinker he is. And if he thought there was any type of hoax involved at all, he would have walked away. He would never have been part of something like that. And he's always said, they always want to try to take away from what we actually do achieve. He goes, no, we did send them up. They did land on the moon. He goes, now, I don't think we've ever gotten full disclosure as to what occurred when they were up there. And I agree with him because I told y'all right before Edgar Mitchell died, I was supposed to interview him. And actually, right after, he passed away, and I was supposed to interview him like that following week, which really rotted. But I had talked to him several times before, and he was another one who was beginning to very publicly discuss some of the things that he encountered while he was up there, and basically how it is withheld from us. And I always kind of wondered why that was. Why would they withhold it? And I've always listened to their baseline excuses of, well, mankind's not ready for that. They're not ready for that kind of revelation. People would melt down. It would mess with too many religions. It would do too much damage. People just would not be able to handle it. It would kick off a chaotic turn of events that we would never recover from. And I always thought that was a gigantic line of BS, to be honest with you. I mean, I get the religious thought process, but I also understand that I don't think in any religious text, not the Quran, not the Bible, not the Torah, have I ever seen that God determined that Earth was the only place that there could be life. Pretty sure that's not in any religious text. And I don't know. Can you guys back me up on that? Have y'all had any inference at all that Earth was the only place there could be life?
I've just got one question. Sorry, Nancy, I've got one question for you. You are making these claims how to be actual things. But
say that again.
You are stating that these claims are actual reality when we have not got the sufficient evidence to make a conclusive conclusion.
Okay, so explain which claims you're talking about. The fact that there's a lot of people who believe we never landed on the moon and that it was a complete Hollywood production? Because that's a very, very long-standing claim that's been happening for decades now. But I can tell you my father worked on components of the crafts, and he was there when those crafts launched. He was there when the communications occurred. So, yeah, I'm going to take my dad, who I know, like, again, there were certain things he could never talk to me about because he was under absolute lock and key as far as what could be discussed. But the space program, after the fact, decades after the fact, no, of course, the people who were working in the launch rooms and working on, like, he was both an electrical and a nuclear engineer. So, I mean, he worked on several different facets, including microchips on the space shuttle program. So, I mean, I am going to trust what he is saying to me. And when he says, granted, I mean, compared to the technology now, compared to what we have now, what we work with now, what we did was beyond dangerous. I mean, they literally sent those guys up there in the equivalent of a tin can with a Pringles can for connection and, pretty much wrapped in toilet paper. And trial and error was really the only way to fix things. And a lot of times they were fixing it on the spot while they were up there. And, he said it took a certain type of person to do that. That's why they went with pilots. That's why they went with actually Air Force pilots and Naval pilots. Because
they said they didn't go.
To where? To the moon?
Yeah, 1969, the Stanley Kubrick, filming and
yes, but I don't think that is true, is what I'm saying. They did go. They absolutely
here's
went.
my belief. Here's my belief. All right. I believe that both happened.
Yep.
And when they cut stream, they would switch to the other, either the studio from the space, because not the general public and the world wouldn't be ready for, some sort of like emergency or, what's
mishap.
that?
Yep. It's
Well,
the truth, though.
I mean, happen at that time.
Well, there's alternate stories too. It's not always just the faking the landing. Like they also believe that they did occur, but on the 17th mission, they encountered aliens, and that these aliens are living under the surface of the moon, and they've been sternly
inside the moon.
Yeah, they've been sternly warned that if they return to the moon, then there'll be consequences.
Well, I think it's interesting because I do find that viable in some ways. I think they're living, just given some of the patterns of information and evidence you get shown and eyewitness testimony. If I was going to take a guess, I wouldn't say we have alien spaceships, like orbiting our planet. And no, I think if anything, we have civilizations within the planet Earth and within the moon. I don't think the moon is a natural structure. It just doesn't make sense as a natural structure. So I think the moon is a created structure. It's just, like I said, it would have to be. Well, even if God did it, it's because I know people say that God doesn't create imperfection, and I'm one of the first to say nature doesn't create imperfection. The Creator does not create imperfection. Your imperfections are actually just misunderstood. So I can see that point of view. But on a technical level, when you break down the actual, I guess you could say, if you want to look at the numbers as to the circumference of the moon, the way the moon is, the hollowness of the moon, the weight of the moon, all of these things don't add up to a natural object. They just don't. I mean, a geologist will tell you that. People who are actually into these things will tell you that. It's probably not a natural object. And if it is a natural object, it was like the most phenomenal piece of something that broke off. Just extremely lucky, I guess you could say. But it just, again, all the information we get leads us to think, no, that's not natural. It's kind of like, okay, so like Mars. I do question Mars. Why do I question Mars? Because just the other day, they were sending back pictures from some of the trawlers that are on Mars. And it's showing a picture of the Martian sunset, okay? And the posting was literally, I think it was the Tech Times that posted it, the first pictures of a Martian sunset. And it shows the beautiful skyline, and it's this eerie colored blue, and you can see this orb that resembles the sun setting. And it's a live shot. It's a video. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. If that's real, it's really cool. But then the video starts panning a little bit left to right, and you see these things. I'm like, wait a minute, those are clouds. Mars doesn't have an atmosphere. So how can we have clouds? That can't be. That cannot be Mars. Because, again, Mars does not have clouds.
But, they have filmed those Mars things from, Nevada?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But my question becomes, like I just posted in the chat earlier about Matt Getz talking about Bluebeam and alien breeding programs that he was made aware of as a young I think he was a congressman or a senator or whatever, whichever position he was serving in. But to me, okay, I know what Blue Beam is.
Mhm.
All right. And obviously Matt Getz is depending on the fact that people do not know what Blue Beam is. They're assuming Blue Beam is this prophesized invasion. And no, you're a bunch of freaking idiots. Blue Beam is a blueprint to a hoax. That's what Blue Beam is. It's a hoax.
It's actually
That's what they're
more.
trying.
It's actually more of a control method. Like
Yeah.
everybody's talking about it. Eventually, it's going to be a new world order with a one world religion.
Correct. It's in all honesty, it's the way to hoax all cultures into believing that this is what the creator, however you call it, God, Allah, doesn't freaking matter, because the way Blue Beam works is that whatever this is going to be in everybody's heads according to whatever belief they have.
Sorry, as you know, I try to base my views on probability most of the time. And what you're saying now is much more probable than being an actual external force.
Oh, it's not going to be external. Blue Beam, like I said, when Serge Monast went public and blew the whistle on this was like in the early 1990s, because he was dead by like 96, 97. And I mean, he did this tour speaking, and I remember when I first heard about Blue Beam, I thought, well, that's because given the technology we had then and what I knew then, because again, my knowledge base has improved quite a bit since then. I was like, wow, that has got to be, good 50 years down the line, because there's just no way they could pull that off. People are not that stupid. And then COVID happened. And I realized how stupid people really are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people just take the word of the talking puppets as fact, and they do absolutely no homework. They don't, and then when they actually are presented with information that says, hey, intellectually speaking, and I don't know, if you value your life, you may want to do a little bit more information digging and stop believing the people who are making billions of dollars off you, because they have a reason to lie. You need to really start examining what they're saying, what is truth, what makes sense, what doesn't. The fact that they tried to sell COVID as a naturally occurring virus, I couldn't believe how many people at the beginning of COVID totally bought that hook, line, and sinker, no questions asked. This is naturally occurring. It came from a bat. What? Wait, what? No, especially not when you have immunologists out there. I mean, and actually, I told you, Mark, a very dear friend of mine taught immunology at King's College over in London, and he was actually head of immunology at London Bridge Hospital. He no longer works there because he stood up against COVID. And he said, there's no way, this is a 1 in 500 million chance that this is naturally occurring. So in other words, it's not.
I just want to let you know on one of your shows, because we talked about this, I got a strike on YouTube.
Yeah.
I will curb it, but I don't think YouTube is being quite so discerning anymore, because there's too much information coming out.
You get a lot of problems with tobacco. If you stay away from the whole thing about tobacco, cancer, and stuff of that nature, that's what they're really, really touchy about right now. So be careful whenever you're having those conversations. We just got in trouble because of that on my channel.
Yeah.
So
isn't that interesting?
That's fun.
Because the nicotine is one thing that helps COVID.
Yep.
I mean, getting over it.
see,
just to saying YouTube rules could help.
and they've just recently gotten in trouble too, because they were brought up on major lawsuits concerning children, and they used the tobacco lawsuits as a way of getting away with it. So they're really touchy
Well,
about that.
here's the fun fact. I thought YouTube, if I remember correctly, when I signed up for YouTube, I had to certify that I was over at the age of 18.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure we all have to do that. And to me, it's one of those things where why are you suppressing or controlling the narrative because you're concerned about minors when minors aren't supposed to be on this platform?
Correction. According to the terms of service, for quite a while now, it's been minimum age has been 13.
Yeah, they just recently cracked down on it, brought it up to the age of 16. That was about 5 years ago, and now they're wanting everybody.
I'm pretty sure it's still 13. I'd love to update
No, it's
review, but I think it's still 13.
13.
Well, I can tell you that when the founder or the CEO of YouTube, I don't know if you guys know this, but Susan, God, what's her last name? She died like a year ago.
Yeah.
And
we need to make a holiday celebrating that day. That was the greatest thing that ever happened on the internet.
I was going to say, when she died, a lot of the, let's just say, crushing BS that occurs on YouTube loosened up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting, that it was like, okay, they're not being nearly as strict with the monitoring. But again, to me, you cannot, if you want to do a platform and include minors on that platform, you need to do a separate platform.
Mm-hmm.
Do a platform for minors and do a platform for adults.
Haven't they still got the YouTube for kids? Service as well.
Do Nickelodeon Tube. I don't care.
Well, I mean, it's
the strike was listed as medical misinformation.
Yeah.
But they'll try that because, again, Big Pharma they just lifted last week. I don't know if you saw that, but last week they lifted the protections for Big Pharma when it comes to the vaccinations.
Was that legally? Legally, that's great.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Who?
Lifting the
Pfizer or
immunity from pharmaceutical
free for companies. Anyway, my other point was that since YouTube sort of will crack down and lighten, and there's been a new president in power in the US.
I think right now there's a lot more going on here than people understand. And I say that tongue in cheek and very much watching with great interest all the things that are happening right now. I think it's funny in some ways, but not funny because, again, like you're seeing tonight, Trump is supposed to be doing an address while we're on the air. Trump is actually doing a national address, and it's supposed to be about Iran. And I think it's funny because I've seen multiple people post, oh, he's going to resign. He's going to leave JD Vance in charge. I'm like, yeah, no, he's not resigning. And if he does and he leaves JD Vance in charge, it's because he wants JD Vance to take a fall. That would be that. But the interesting thing I find is that, like last week, you had another scruff with England. Trump made it real clear, pushed it right back at England's face and said, oh, wait, you're complaining about your oil when you wouldn't give us any help with the Straits of Hormuz? Okay, that's fine. Go get your own oil.
In fact, that was only a couple of days ago. Last 2-3 days. And Mr. Robert actually showed me, and I saw a thing later on yesterday afternoon, now on YouTube.
But he's definitely targeting English business. He's targeting English banking. Not necessarily the English people, but definitely, like, we have a huge strike over here right now with British Petroleum. One of our largest refineries, Whiting, Indiana, biggest refinery we've got. And they got locked out last week by BP. And I'm really familiar with what's going on with that strike. I did some work on that strike. So I can tell you that there's a lot going on there. And BP is not in the right with this at all. And I never feel bad for strikers, but these people I actually feel bad for because they're getting the shaft. they're wanting to put AI in. They're wanting to basically do away with the actual workers. Well, Whiting as a refinery is in crappy condition as far as safety goes. That's bad. But in the same respect, they got a letter from the Trump White House. The strikers did. The union did. Basically putting a lot of support behind the union and saying that BP is got a deplorable record and that they need to take better care of their people. And I was like, oh, that's a direct hit, because that is a British company. That is not an American company. That is a British company. And it's like the only time I've seen it's the only one
in the US.
Yes, but it doesn't. That it's not going to matter, because Trump, I'm telling you, he's got a crosshair on England, at least on the English banks. And there's reasons for that.
Didn't they set them up
it's also
for a
politics as
trap?
well.
The king and queen are supposed to come over to America, right?
King.
The king, yeah. Well, the queen consort.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel, Mark.
I've got Donald Trump's chief social statement here, and it continues with you quote, "You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore."
And it's like the only time I've
you once there for us. Should I remind him about Iraq? Should we remind him about what happened in Iraq in 2000 and whatever it was, 2001?
Absolutely. But again, I'm looking at him and I'm understanding where he's going with this. Because if we look at the war chest of Iraq and how much it cost the countries, we spent quadruple what you guys spent in Iraq. I mean, more than that. And that came back on our heads. That's not the politicians, the taxpayers. We pay for that shit.
Yeah, but who had
and
the most
taken out of us?
Who had the most invested in Kuwait? Because that's actually what Iraq during Desert Storm was involved in. It wasn't even Iraq; it was the oil.
It was the oil.
Who had more money involved in that? Than the rest of them. I'm thinking George Bush Sr., who has one of the biggest oil refineries in Texas, or companies. You got Rumsfeld. You got Rumsfeld.
Yep. And it was It was actually Cheney.
Dick Cheney too.
It was Halliburton. Yeah. It was Halliburton.
Yeah.
And Syria was Halliburton.
I mean,
and I reminded somebody of that the other day. Israel's taking credit for toppling Bashar Assad in Syria. And I'm like, oh yeah. I said, I tried to tell y'all, they were in there the day after October 7th. You had Israel in frickin' Syria bombing the airports. Why? Nobody even questioned it. What the heck did Syria have to do with what happened October 7th? Nothing. So why was Israel in there bombing Syrian airports? Why did Israel try to install an Al-Qaeda leader as the next leader? And now they want to assassinate him. Now Israel's talking about taking Syria's leader out. And I'm like, because he's not playing ball with Israel. He's not letting Israel run the game. That's why. And now you're seeing we have a lot of information here where we're being told that Iran is not negotiating with the United States. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. But that's our MSM doing that. But actually, when you start reading like the White House releases, there's negotiation going on, because whoever Trump and Vance are talking to in Iran, they did this little thing where they said, okay, we're going to give you the names of a couple of ships. If you're sincere about this negotiation, you're going to let those ships pass through the Straits of Hormuz. And they did. So obviously, somebody's telling the truth, somebody's lying. And there's a reason behind the lies.
It's still a propaganda game. Even in the Cold War, there was public announcements that the West wasn't speaking to the Russians, but in reality, in closed doors.
Oop, guys, I gotta take us out to break. I just looked down at the time. Sorry about that. I hate to interrupt. Hang in there, folks. We will return. I'd like to get back over to the space program, though, because that's really interesting right now. Hang in there. We'll be back in a few moments.
All right, we're on radio break.
Sorry about that, Mark.
Because I was eating.
No, that's okay. I finished my point anyway, just as you said. But it's true. Just because you hear something in the public doesn't mean that that's necessarily true.
That's
well, the problem we have, Mark, is that 98% of what we're told on the news is not. It's not reality. It's just not. And it's like, you can sit there and say this is what's happening all day long, and you can put Bibi Netanyahu on for 24 freaking hours. It does not mean that what he's saying or what you're trying to tell us he's saying is true. Like so Bibi shut down the Church of the Sepulchre, the Christian church in Israel. He shut it down for Easter week. Okay, refused to allow the bishops to enter the Church of the Sepulchre to celebrate Palm Sunday. Okay, probably one of the most holy holidays of the week. And yet it's also Passover week. And the synagogues, which you would think would be in a lot more danger than the Christian churches, the synagogues were open. They were under restrictions of they couldn't have more than 50 people, but they were open. The only reason the bishop wanted into the church was because they were going to live stream it. They weren't even going to have any people in the church besides the bishop and the priests, and they were going to live stream it so the Catholics as a whole would be able to see the celebrations of Palm Sunday from the Church of the Sepulchre. Israel would not allow it, and has yet to reopen it. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to go with the whole he's trying to keep the Christians safe game. That's bullshit, and we all know it. I mean, no. If it was trying to keep people safe, the synagogues would be closed too.
Right.
It was a definite hit. And I know that the Christian church within Jerusalem itself had put out a scathing letter against Bibi like 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand why American Christians and European Christians and Catholics are not understanding that there is definitely a caste system in Israel. And unless you're Jewish, and unless you're actually Zionist Jew, you're at the bottom of the system. End of story.
And I'm going to say one thing though, when it comes to all that, it's I've been doing a show here with the Third Thing with Tan Hai Tran, who's a devout Catholic, and then I've got B on the other end, who's like Mr. Robot. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I have Otto, who's a Buddhist, and we're all talking about things that concern, religion and stuff like that, and especially the Catholic Church. Now, the thing that I've noticed is like with these religious people, the reason why they can't understand that it's a caste system is because they are a part of the caste system.
Yes. They don't see it.
I've been on these streams and I've just been sitting back and virtually saying nothing.
And another thing I want to point out is, have you noticed how good looking I am compared to Mark Watashik, dude? I am like way better looking than him.
You've got rid of your beard.
Yes,
now, how come you didn't say that during the actual live stream? Why didn't you wait
because I just didn't want to embarrass Mark.
We have less than 30 seconds, folks.
Okay, so Mark, my suggestion would be when we go in, you need to play Right Said Fred. I'm too sexy for
my come on, Mark. Don't be like that. Hater. He's just a hater. Put it back there.
3, 2, 1, and you're live.
And we are back. Happy April 1st, everybody. April Fool's Day. Welcome back to the Vixen's Vault. It is 9:31 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and a very balmy evening this evening in Florida. I'm actually sweating. I'm like, oh, where's that cold weather? Where did it go? And, we've had one of those weeks. We had to have our air conditioning replaced. It's just been one of those weeks. But here we are. We're back and live as usual. And yep, I know what we were talking about when we went off air, and it does kind of circle back in because Israel does play a part in the Blue Beam uh, scenario. And as I was saying, Matt Getz actually went public with his thoughts. Laura Loomer has been talking about Blue Beam, and the fact that they're openly speaking about it, but they're speaking about it as if it's a factual alien invasion, which again, anybody who knows anything about Blue Beam knows that that's not the case. That's not what Blue Beam was about. Blue Beam is about tricking the masses. Right. Yeah, and the weird part is there's a network of events that are occurring right now that actually fit the Blue Beam scenario. And that's what's kind of got me going, we have all of a sudden all these fireballs. And I think I said, Mark and I were talking about it last week. And I was saying, because I was trying to get on the air, but I was dealing with a client. So it just didn't work out. But we were in the chat talking back and forth. And I was like, dude, there's something going on. Because we're not in the middle of we don't have a meteor shower right now. Okay. The meteor showers were at the end of April, mid-April to the end of April. So we are out of that zone of meteor showers. Yet we are seeing fireballs everywhere.
But we had the Golden Dome, though. We had the Golden Dome.
But
isn't that part of that?
This is what I'm finding interesting, because I think I said it after the third one, because I was like, yeah, no, one is unusual, especially when it gets in close enough to where it's exploding. That was the one in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. It was close enough to the ground by the time it quote unquote disintegrated. It exploded. It literally rocked things, like it caused a seismic tremor. Okay. But then we had, I think the next day there was one in Ohio, and then there's one in Tennessee, and then there's two in Texas. And I mean, then, they were all over the place. And I'm like, what is going on with these fireballs? Oh my God, we don't have any meteor showers. This doesn't make any sense. And I know NASA actually put something up, because obviously I wouldn't be the only person that noticed. And they were saying, oh, it has to do with the axis change of the planet due to this, the earthquake back in 2009. And because of that, we are in a different, we're passing through things differently. And no, then this would have been happening all the way up to now, if that was the case. It doesn't make sense with what you're explaining is happening. To me, it looks like, my first thought, and I put it in the chat, was that it looks like satellites. Or that could easily be satellites.
And when you saw the Iran and Israel going back and forth, and those missiles would hit the Iron Dome, and they would kind of blow up in the atmosphere before it even get there. If we have the Golden Dome and it's already in place, and maybe they were trying to show us that.
It could be that, but I've always made mention, and Mark Edworthy, you might understand what I'm talking about. When SpaceX began putting up the satellites, okay, so they started putting them everywhere, and you see the Starlink trains. If you look up at certain times, they're actually way more visible than like the space station, which you can also see every once in a while. To me, when I look at the grid for Starlink, I mean, guys who are listening, people who are listening on the air, just go to Google and type in Starlink grid and pull it up. I said, it is a giant web that goes around the world. Okay, so literally there's very few pockets that are not covered by Starlink. My first thoughts with Starlink when I saw that, and this is years ago, I was like, that would be, okay, to me, that looks like a defense system. It's either going to keep something out or keep something in or prevent something, because it's a web. It doesn't make sense as communications, because almost all of our communications are actually underwater. So
I've been a bit curious about this. Considering that these satellites are all all around the world. Isn't there some sort of international treaty, or I mean, would, as an example, would China be happy having a US satellite over
Depends on
China?
where their orbit is. I think the treaties are based on height, the orbits. So if Starlink is above, it's kind of like China back in 2019 they put up a satellite, and they actually put it behind the moon. And people, it got a very small blurb in the news, but I remember I was like, oh crap, because to me, the furthest satellite out wins when it comes to defense measures or offense measures. The one China had the furthest one out, and I was like, anything in front of that satellite, between that satellite and Earth, is basically a moving target for that satellite. It can block signal. It can do all these things. Why? Because it's the furthest one back. And I think Glenn Beck actually did do a show on that, like 2021, because he had researchers look into it, and he was like, oh yeah, that's not good. No, it's not good. But again, I know Musk's network goes everywhere. How do you think they've got right now? He was dropping Starlink platforms, the minis, in Iran. They were parachuting them in to people in Iran. Why? Because you can't. Number one, you can't connect to Starlink unless you've got a mini or a device that allows you to get in. Although I think it was hacked. I think Starlink was hacked like a month ago. I think I read something about that.
He now has a phone. The Starlink, the AI phone.
Yep. But again, to me, Starlink, and I know there's a big military component to Starlink that they don't talk about. I know a lot of the Falcon X heavies, when they're going up, are carrying military equipment. And we know that because a lot of times Kennedy will let us know it's got a military payload, or it's got this payload, it's got that payload, it's got 3 or 4 satellites on board, blah, 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 blah. But there's 9 times out of 10, there's a military component to the payload. And it's like, okay, so, but our military sats are different than Starlink. And it really makes you sit there and think about it and say, well, why would we have military components on Starlink if we already have fully different systems and sats up there that are run by the U.S. military? So why would we need it in multiple places unless we have a system for one military and a different system for another military?
When you say military components, are we just talking about telecommunication?
Say that again?
When you say military components.
No. Telecommunication components, I mean, they would actually most likely, if they were military grade telecommunications, it wouldn't even be noted on the roster. It would be classified. Well, so for them to have a notation of military such and such, but it's not, it's declassified. That's not going to deal with telecommunication.
I just posted something to there. It said the fireball meteor spike during this, hinting debris from Atlas. Debris neutralized in orbit. Trump's Golden Dome shields Earth, launching phased UFO disclosures in a 500-year tech leap. And that was just from 2 days ago.
I think, well, the 500-year tech, I've told you guys, they lie about the tech. They have been lying for decades about the type of tech we actually have.
Me and Mark joke around. Me and Mark joke around about that, by the way.
It's not like they're not going to bring it out.
Well, again, I really don't think, God, what was his last name? Ben, oh my God, he had the same last name as the Democrat kid that was killed back in 2014. He was the head of Skunk Works. I can't think of his last name, though. But he, it was Ben Rich. I don't think Ben Rich was speaking out of turn when he did that address. I think that was in like 1993. He was doing a public speech at a university, and he was saying that we have technology well beyond anything we could possibly imagine current what common people could possibly imagine. We have tech that goes far beyond that, and it would literally take an act of God for the government to reveal it, which I found very interesting because right around that same time, you had Serge Monast writing about Bluebeam, basically saying that Bluebeam was going to be a hoax act of God. I was like,
But
oh wow, here we go.
so you're saying that we don't have this tech? We do.
I think
And
that's what I'm saying. But I think it's a golden shield, a golden dome. The way we think of it, I think it's way more advanced than that.
well, that's what I'm
Way
saying.
more.
That's what that's what you're seeing,
Yes.
that these things are coming through. That's what we're seeing is
I'm sorry.
files.
Sorry. Pretty. I mentioned last week in chat, last Wednesday, before we were planning to go on there, that about the amount of debris that we've got up in
Space junk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
But here's my problem, Mark. Why all of a sudden from March 1st to March 30th do we have a boatload, if it was space junk, a boatload of space junk not only burn into our atmosphere, but make it really, really, really close to the point where somebody actually has a piece of material in their house in Texas. Really, really close to our surface. Okay, because normally space junk, that's not how it works.
Now, see,
It doesn't come
But they're
down
getting
like
ready.
that.
It's disclosure.
no, it's like when you're talking about like long-term technology and stuff. It's like when you go into even on the internet. Me and Mark was joking about this with everybody always used to say that if you put it on the internet, it's going to be there forever. And it took years and years before people started figuring out that that was a load of shit. Like you can get long-term memory like through perma web or perma pages and stuff like that for like two to 500 years, I think. But allegedly, yeah. But
according to press documents, press releases.
But I mean, that's just the internet. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, you got to take that into consideration too. Now,
I made the joke about searching for my first ever website that I did on GeoCities back in '96. You're not going to find it at all.
Right.
No.
So
well, it's funny too because the Internet Archive have been, the last decade, have been under constant attack. I mean, it's constant. You at least once or twice a week, I see the Internet Archives a complete down. I mean, completely down. And usually when that occurs, that means something is being removed or added to the Internet Archives. And that, again, it reshapes our history. It reshapes people's Well, what do you think happened in like 2011, 2012 when one of George Soros's arms bought up dictionary.com? I keep trying to tell people, you don't understand. They changed the meaning of words. They went into dictionary.com and they went in, after that, they started hitting the encyclopedias and they changed how words were defined, like the word fascist being one of them. I mean, it was crazy because we have a whole generation now who, honest to God, believe they know what a fascist is, but what they're actually describing is not a fascist, but what they're doing is fascism. So it's like, how did that get redefined? How does that happen?
They want to move to they want Italy to move to the classic sort of Roman sort of concept. You said fascism.
This is what I'm saying though. It's kind of like, to make a comparison, it's like when the 3rd century AD, when the Council of Nicaea decided that they were going to come up with a Christian Bible. Okay, they were going to take all these writings of the followers of Jesus and come up with this Bible. And they took what they wanted and they burned what they didn't want. So the things that they didn't feel fit a controllable society, they left out. Well, that is not a true belief. That's not a true system. That is a system based off control and lies in many ways. So you now have a whole religion 2,000 years later who doesn't have an inkling that there's a whole big chunk missing in their history because a bunch of guys, 30 some odd guys decided, oh, no, we don't want that because that might give them too much. They might think too much. We don't want that. We don't want them thinking. Thinking is a bad thing.
Or the language is different because they probably did it
Yes.
in Latin as opposed to Greek, which is what the apostles and the Aramaic or
It was
Hebrew,
Greek and
what they would,
Aramaic. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that does make quite a bit of difference,
It does. It does.
because and the church fathers, we're talking Augustine, different people in there, Tertullian and all that kind of. Those people, yeah, they didn't like the Greek. they wanted to stick to Latin. It's just different. It's a whole different slant.
It is. It is a different, and it's funny because Greek is still spoken and Latin is a dead language. So
I know it's
kind
kind
of
of funny.
I know.
Kind of funny how that works.
Latin is still used in science,
Law.
possibly law. Yeah.
Yep. But it's pretty much a dead language. It's not a commonly spoken language at all.
I still occasionally quote Latin. Occasionally.
Well, I mean, a lot of us quote.
Phrases.
I have Latin on my. Yeah, I have Latin phrases all over the place, but it's not commonly spoken. And if you ask young people from the last two generations about Latin, they're going to give you a very blank look, like, what? What is that?
Or if you can read Italy, if you can read Latin, that's pretty impressive. Because
it's true.
They
it's
don't.
True. Yep. Even though their language is based on it, so is Spanish. Right. It's all based on French. They're all based on Latin. But it's kind of like I was telling somebody the other day, we were talking about Hebrew, the Hebrew language. And I'm like, it reminds me a little bit of German. It does, because it's a guttural language. But I said, but you have Yiddish, which is actually a lot more Jews speak Yiddish than they do Hebrew. I'm like, and Yiddish is German.
It's one of those Etruscan languages. Yeah.
It's Etruscan. So it's like, did you ever wonder about that? How that happened? Because it wasn't spoken in Israel back, 100 years ago when Israel was under the Ottoman Empire. Right. Not at all. It was, if you either spoke Hebrew or Arabic or Persian, you were not speaking Yiddish over there. That's for damn sure. Mm-hmm. So it's a very, again, it's an interesting thought process. And I thought it was very interesting too, the other thing that had occurred this week, that first you had BB a couple weeks ago saying that, the Messiah was coming, that the defeat of Iran would bring about the Messiah. And I told you all my opinions on that, because if you're truly a Christian that follows the Bible, that's going to go against everything you believe, because the second coming would be, you have the Antichrist before the second coming. So that's a problem.
Well, they don't believe the Messiah. Their Messiah hasn't come yet.
Correct. But what does that do to the Christians? If their Messiah shows up and our second coming hasn't happened, what does that do? That means that you're in the middle, which means it's the Antichrist, because the Antichrist comes between the first and the second coming. But it's like I said, it's a very interesting scenario. But then you have on top of that, this past week, BB basically telling everybody that Israel is now superseded the United States as a superpower. And I thought, oh, you did not just say that. You did not just say that, because you see, we just sent a bunch of troops over there, and I just have this very strange feeling it's not because of Iran. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to end real well, because Bibi also basically shut down the elections in Israel this past week. So he's not going to be up for re-election because of war. But, logistically speaking, his last election in 2021-22, they were running on Smartmatic Dominion systems, and The people of Israel didn't really agree with the results very much because they didn't really think he won that election.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is very interesting timing. You had Venezuela go down. That's where the servers were for Smartmatic and Dominion. And now you've got BB suddenly saying, oh, no, we're at war. We can't have another election again. You've got Tucker Carlson dropping the videos of BB being interrogated when he was arrested, which, by the way, that occurred in 2019. That was during Trump's first administration. And strangely enough, within a month of Trump losing the 2020 election, BB was back in power. Wow. But, Trump loves BB, and BB loves Trump. Really. I'm telling you. For real.
Yeah.
Again, it's if you look at it historically, and I always say that, you got to stop. You got to shut the news off. You have to stop reading all the clickbait. You have to stop. Because everybody is going to have, even I have an agenda behind what I'm doing. Yeah, I truly believe in what I see happening. So even with me, you guys, discern on your own. Go out and find your own information. But for God's sakes, stop listening to all this crap, because I'm telling you what's occurring and what we're hearing are not the same. They're just not the same.
And their narratives being put out in front of us.
It's big words that needs to be remembered. Like, you got to remember what propaganda and narratives. I personally know, or I see the difference between how things have been between, say, 2010 and 15 to now, and you can't tell me that that's not happening. There is such thing as unbiased, but they're not using it anymore.
I think you're seeing a 1-2 punch in a lot of ways, because I think you have to get things even somewhat controllable. You have got to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood, okay? Because again, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Zionists, it's all one system.
Right.
And people just don't want to see that. They want to separate them because they've been told to. But it's not. It's one system. And you got to get rid of both of them, because if we don't get rid of both of them, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be under the same crap as we are. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And, I think that's another reason that England's been targeted, because of the Muslim Brotherhood and their infiltration of England, because you guys are overrun over there.
Yeah. And England is, well, didn't Rothschild buy the Israel?
Yep.
So,
all right.
Yeah, they're all in.
I got to take us out to our long break, but that being said, I also, before we go out to break, I want to drop this little tidbit. The Vatican made a Rothschild the head of the Vatican Bank this week. And if that doesn't tell you what's going down, then I got nothing for you. Hang in there, guys. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more of the Vixen's Vault. Get a smile on your face and get some coffee or some Coke or something. Not cocaine, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola.
Oh, no, she had to go there.
I never know who's listening. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
You made your narrative clear.
We're on radio break now.
Poor Marcus, ready to explode.
I said Coke, and I thought about it. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't just say that. Oh, yeah, I gotta crank that.
Go get you some Coke. Get you some Coke and snort it up. I'm gonna go get that coffee.
Yeah. That is really cool. That is cool.
Sound wave, yeah.
I put it on there so that it would look cool.
You've been using that thing on a lot of bars recently.
Well, this isn't. I've never done it like for sharing and stuff, like on the virtual camera. So I figured I'd do it this time.
Whoa! Holy crap! What is this? Hold on a minute. I'm gonna read this off to you. I don't know if this is a past event or if this is current. A devastating fire inside the USS Bonefish, SS 582 forces crew to abandon submarine. The submarine USS Bonefish suffered a catastrophic fire during a training mission about 160 miles from the coast of Florida. The incident began when seawater entered through the trash disposal unit and reached the electrical components in the battery compartment, triggering an electrical arc that ignited a rapidly spreading blaze. Thick smoke and intense heat quickly filled the submarine. That's, dude, because listen, the last like 3 weeks, and I think Raphael is on with us and he can verify this. We've had, let's see, Scandinavian subs off our coast. We've had Chinese subs off our coast. And we've had subs
got a
off the Florida
shark?
coast.
Big shark?
Yeah, we've got a 14-foot great white.
I thought it was
Yep.
16.
No, it's a female. She's 14 feet. She's right off the county below me. She's right off Pinellas County. Like, she keeps pinging off the coast right near Anclote Key. So it's, I've scubaed there many times. I'm going to drop the link because it actually shows the the fire. I'm like, that's not good.
I'm gonna get off and reboot because I can't.
More than likely an
darn this
accident.
thing.
A sort of, I don't know,
Alright.
yeah.
We're gonna
accident
get
that
cut
just-
off here pretty soon, so yeah. Let's hang up and I'll call you guys right back.
Sounds good.
All right.
Because I lose track of where I was at when I went on break, but we just continue our conversation. When we're on break, Mark pointed out, hi, Larry, by the way. Mark pointed out that Larry's in chat. Hi, Larry. And he was asking whether or not BB was alive or dead. And I got to tell you, for all it's worth, I don't know if he's with us anymore because everything I see that comes out per video, unless they're wanting us to think he's dead, and I thought about that too because of the way these games were played.
The fingers.
Do they want us to
Six
think he's
fingers.
dead? I mean, because I know the Israelis and the Mossad are actually really good with fake video. It's that they it's very almost impossible to discern whether it's real or fake if you're going evidentially, but they don't make mistakes like Six Fingers. They don't do that. I'm like, I can't understand why they would even allow that to go international unless either one, they want us to know BB's dead,
Right.
or number two, they want us to think BB's dead. Because there was no not questioning those videos, either one of them. Even the second one in the coffee shop or wherever the heck he was, it was too perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Campione and I were talking about that when it was first posted. I was like, dude, it was way too perfect. I mean, even if you shot in 4K, this looked like BB was the green screen. It was crazy. It was just crazy. I said, but they want you to believe that it's 100% real. Look how clear it is. Look, it's this. Yeah, well, the motion didn't match the person. Number one, that's a problem. But again, the Mossad is not stupid. They're not even close to stupid. They are one of the most feared intelligence agencies for a friggin' reason. So
Didn't they start at the same time the CIA did, or a year after?
They started a year after.
Yeah.
A year after. Like literally, if you look at the timeline of the Mossad, the CIA, and the development of the Israeli government, it's kind of scary. It's like, yeah, that's not good. But
and all bought by the English, right?
Well, by a certain Englishman. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the English, but I mean, then of course England dove in with making the Bank of England a national bank rather than a privately owned bank. So yeah, that's where you saw the joining or the marriage between the Rothschild family and the British royal family. So yeah, it's very interesting. And again, timing. You got King Charles coming here with camel toe. Sorry, I can't help it. I did it with Kamala Harris, and I'm gonna do it with your royal consort, whatever she is, because she's a something. I will tell you that. I don't know what the British people think about it. I think y'all try to love her because you have to. You try to like her, even if not love, at least like her, and even that's hard. I mean, it's.
Again, I don't know. I don't listen to celebrity gossips, so I don't know what the sort of general perception is.
I don't know. Maybe it's my age, but I got up. I remember when Princess Diana married Charles, and I remember getting so caught up in the romanticism of that whole thing, and just oh God, I remember settling down in front of the TV to watch the wedding and oohing and ahhing over her dress. And now I look at that dress, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what were you thinking?
A small embarrassment thing. I've got my dad's got a old photograph of me in a sort of church parish faith thing. Having a sort of I don't know, when I was 5-6 years old, scoffing jelly or trifle or something.
Oh God. Oh no. Why we don't give dads cameras? Lesson number 1.
That's embarrassing to you, man. I mean, he didn't have like baby pictures of you naked on a bear rug or.
Oh my God.
That's
they didn't
embarrassing.
do that over in England, jolly old England. They didn't do that.
Mark, I'm telling you, I'm going to set up an encrypted chat with you and say, don't say this in front of Roger, please, because Roger will find that photo and blow it up and paste it all over anything that has your name on it. So don't.
Yes, I will.
You might check with the Mossad first and see if they've done it.
There's only one copy of it. One, yeah.
Oh, one. Well, Mark's like, that's what you think, Mark. That's what you think. But I mean, here's the thing. And now actually Roger's brain is probably tingling where he's thinking, I could actually probably make a fake of that. I guarantee this is what Roger's thinking. I know he's thinking it now.
It'd probably be a good idea, but Mark has meltdowns, man. I couldn't do that. He would literally he'd say, I'd bring you up on legal charges and you better take that down. Like when they put him in a G-string, he went unhinged, man.
But I mean, like I said, going back to that wedding, I mean, I remember, I think every girl on the planet pretty much got caught up in that wedding. It was because it was every girl's dream. You marry a prince, although I never thought Charles was handsome by any stretch of the imagination. Still, I always thought Andrew was, and what was the third one? Was Edward?
Edward, yeah.
Oh my God, he was a handsome thing. Oh, but and I remember thinking how innocent she looked. I never got over that. How, I don't know, just innocent she looked. Just the fairy tale princess and everything that occurred as time went on. and the things we found out about the strictness of protocol and how the royals work and how they've always worked and how things are, and the struggle to, I guess you could say, come into the modern ages, and it was just a tragic tale.
And
And
she
to
really
know
loved
that
him. That's the problem.
I think she tried.
Well,
I
I
don't.
mean, originally she
Yeah,
did, and then then when reality hit her in the face, she was like, "Oh."
but I really don't think Harry is his son. I can tell you that. I look at Prince Harry and I look at him, and I look at Prince Harry, then I look at her bodyguard, and I look at Prince Harry, and I'm like, yeah, that looks like the bodyguard's kid. That really does not look like Charles's kid. But
Mhm.
you never know because there's so many genetic mix-ups within the Windsor house. It could be, but I don't think so. Oh, that was the other thing. Did you guys see where Sarah Ferguson got stripped of her title?
Yeah.
Oh
Is
God.
that
Very, yeah.
because
Yeah.
Andrew did? Because Andrew did?
No, well, yeah, but there's also allegations that she was laundering money. Again, allegations that she was laundering money to the Epstein project.
Oh
Yep.
no! Oh no!
Because she continued communication with Epstein after his conviction, and it was a very friendly communication. And you know what? I'm 100% for that. I don't care who she is, but if Andrew is going to take a hit, so should she. 100%. If she continued that communication and she was in that network, she should face the same ramifications Andrew faces publicly.
Well, hold on. We gotta look at this at a really serious perspective, though, because a lot of people are trying to confuse this as being conspiracy. But let's look at the connection there with Fergie financing the Epstein stuff, and then let's look at Maxwell. Everybody always wants to overlook Maxwell, okay? She was actually flying models in from France.
Yep.
Supposed models. Okay. So, I mean, it's
proven
right
underage.
There. Yeah.
Proven underage models. And that's the thing. And actually, I saw something about her today, Maxwell, and it was actually a recording of her basically not even just owning everything she did, but proud of what she did. And it's like, I think what makes me angry is I see her sitting in a jail, and the people that she actually provided the services to are still, we're still catching up to that. And it's like, okay, even if you could get them with treason or a more serious charge down the line, the fact is that, to me, anything that deals with underage children and sex and anything, no, that to me, that's a primary. That goes above treason in my book. Because you're willing to sacrifice future generations. Oh, no. Bye-bye.
I said just now that I don't do celebrity gossip, but while I was growing up, there was this perception, general perception that, a lot of people didn't like Fergie at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a general perception about something was wrong, even
I don't
back
think
in
the
the
Queen.
80s.
Yeah, I don't think the Queen liked Fergie.
After
they said she was
caught taking pictures with that guy,
Well, she was. It wasn't just that. She was wild and she was lippy. I remember that. She was lippy as all hell. But it's such a difference from Diana. But I know Diana liked Fergie, found her funny. But again, I think that, I don't know, the Queen was kind of in a hard position. I really, really do believe that. How do you control all that? How do you control it?
I mean, I liked Fergie. I thought she was sexy as heck.
She was a trip. She was like the Donald Trump of the female Donald Trump of the the British royal family. She really was.
She made Lady Gaga look like oatmeal.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh, God.
Come on. You're like Willie and think that what's her name? Sidney Powell.
Oh, yeah.
All right. You and Willie both think Sidney Powell is hot.
If you
Get out of
put a bag
He
over
loves her
Sydney,
brain.
if you put a bag
He
over
loves
her
her
face,
brain.
no, okay, yeah, I can go that far, but put a bag over her face and let her talk smart, and yeah, she's hot. And walk
Actually,
backwards.
her
Nancy, you
name.
got to bring out your medical talk. Go ahead,
It was
Nancy.
funny because Sidney Powell is actually starting to crack the surface again with being reported on, which, she went really zero dark 30 for a while there. And it was because of obviously her connections to Trump and, the fact that she was targeted. But what she was saying, and I've said that, what Sidney Powell was putting out there was not untrue. It was 100% accurate. And, she paid for that in a lot of ways, but now it's kind of coming back. And I think Sidney Powell, when you hear the word Kraken, I know a lot of people always say Kraken and they talk Mike Flynn or they talk, others within the Trump circle of the first administration. I think Kraken is Sidney Powell. And I keep saying that. When they say release the Kraken, they're talking about Sidney Powell. And at least that's my thought process. But she's brilliant. I have a lot of respect for her. I have a lot of respect for what she went through because, her whole career got destroyed because of what occurred. And, again, I think there's a comeuppance for that. And I think we're going to see it pretty darn soon, actually. And actually, that's what I was getting into this week and the weird coincidence we have this week. We had the Artemis launch on April Fool's Day. Let's just put that out there. If I didn't point that out, I'd be a moron. You have these weird meteor showers that make absolutely no sense. Then you've got, on top of that, we have a comet that's actually going to be visible to the naked eye the day before Easter. So Holy Saturday, we have a comet that's supposed to pass behind the sun, and the predictions are it's going to survive that pass, and it's going to be visible to the naked eye on Saturday. And again, I'm looking at it going, I get where people say, like, Mark, whenever I think of this, I think of you. It's just a coincidence. No, I don't believe in coincidences, especially not like this. And I keep saying it's like you're being brought to the precipice of a great movie. You're hitting that tone of the here we go, here's the grand finale. That's what it feels like right now. Even what's going on worldwide. We keep getting told, you keep hearing the news drop the word nuclear. Nuclear, 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 nuclear. And yet you've got Iran saying we don't have them. We've never had them. We do not have them. 40 years Israel has been accusing us of having nuclear weapons. We don't have them. And honestly, I don't think they do. Do they have ballistic missiles? Yes, I think they do have ballistic missiles. Do they have nukes? No, I don't think so. Not even close.
Well, the argument is that they, they may have enough material to potentially make a nuclear weapon.
But Mark, think about this logically. If they were as terroristic and as evil as is pushed on us here in the Western culture constantly, and I'm not saying there weren't bad players. I'm saying I don't think that it's what they've been portraying. I think they need a bad guy, so they're going to use a bad guy so they can get what they want out of the situation. But if Iran really wanted to do some damage, you really think they're not capable of doing, with minimal supplies, a radioactive dirty bomb? Of course they could.
Well, Mark,
well, they also have, like you said, a huge market in pharmaceuticals, NBC weapon, chemical.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If they really wanted to do damage, if they were really that evil,
and Raph
we would have gone down this road.
Raph just mentioned something in chat too that I agree with, and he's right. They have always been 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon since the 90s. Okay, and they've had UN inspectors in there. They've had they've known that they've had the nuclear capabilities since the Iraq War when our airplanes flew over and took sightings of it. So I don't get where everybody's coming up with it's such a surprise that they had nuclear facilities because it's always been known since the 1990s.
Well, put it
And
this way.
where did the bomb go from Whiteman Air Force Base?
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Believe me. I mean, I've said that too, but I actually think that bomb didn't go there. I think it went to Israel. Just saying. But I mean, it's one of those things where you have to really just stop and think and say, again, they could have done a dirty bomb. They could have done a chemical bomb. It's not them using chemicals, by the way, in this war. Who's using the white phosphate? Who is bombing right now with white phosphate? It is not Iran. Who is doing that? It's Israel.
In saying that during the 80s Iraq-Iran war, there was a chemical weapons were used on both sides.
No, it was actually Iraq was doing it to Iran, and when it comes to that, that's an interesting story because you had what they refer to as the modern day version of the Immortals, and these people were literally walking into chemical bombs, committing suicide to fight against Iraq, and they, believe it or not, they actually beat them up. And that's why my big
what they did what they beat them off.
Oh yeah, they sorry.
What?
I better watch out. I gotta watch what I say around Nancy. but yeah, I mean, but and now today everybody's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be in and out, and Trump's gonna beat them. No, that's not gonna happen. You are dealing with the most radical country in the world. That's the one thing I can agree on. If you want to go to war against any country, or if you don't want to go to war against any country, Iran is the country you do not want to, because they will die to the last person.
Yep. Well, here's the other thing too. If there was a real threat of a weaponized Iranian nuclear program, do you really think Iraq wouldn't have been the first one blowing the freaking whistle on that?
Yeah.
Of course they would have. I mean, this is what I'm saying. It doesn't make what they're selling you does not make sense except when they're beating a war drum, and then nobody's listening anyway. It's like, dudes, this doesn't make sense because again, if they're these evil, horrific terrorists, they would have utilized that. Just like Israel is using white phosphate.
Russia is not going to give them something that's going to reach Moscow either.
Exactly. They're not. You're right. And China's not going to give them something that's going to reach Taiwan. They won't. It's true. It's true. But all right, guys, with that, I'm going to take us out to our last break of the evening. When we return, we're going to try to wrap this into something intellectual, maybe. I don't think so. It's just too much fun just talking about it. We'll be back in just a few minutes, guys.
All right, we're on radio break.
And I think, like I said, I think you have a government within Iran where there are Mossad factions functioning within the government. And that really, it puts a monkey wrench in so much. Like, I think right now, the press is probably getting their information from the Mossad factions within Iran, while you have the Trump administration that's negotiating with the actual leadership of Iran. It's like a bipolar situation over there, because press is saying one thing, but we've got the Trump administration saying something different, and what's manifesting as real is what the Trump administration is saying. So it's like, okay, so who exactly are the press talking to? Because what they're saying versus what's actually happening are very different things.
Here's
we do have
for you to check out, Nancy. All right, Jeff Nadolny, who has Dogman Encounters on YouTube.
Yeah,
he gets this guy in every now and then. It's a government contractor, and they're now releasing stuff about tagged dogmen and werewolves.
Did Jack ever tell you that I had a dream about the Dogman, and it was I said there's a military component to this?
Yeah, there is a military. There's definitely. Yep. In fact, they used them recently in Africa.
Yep. I told him that. I
This
think
one
this was like
guy,
2 years
I
ago.
mean,
Yep.
he was on he was on the air. Apparently, he's allowed to talk about this, and I think a lot of this has to do with funding being cut off
Mm,
from
that's
certain
interesting.
places, and we all know that disclosure comes from funding being cut off.
Well, disclosure comes from funding being cut off, or disclosure comes when they want funded restored, and it can be true or false disclosure. Like I
True,
said, I think a lot of the crap
but
we're being told
this
is they're
guy
going to push a blue beam.
apparently this guy is a hunter, and when they go out of control, they call up one of his teams or a team like he's on to go out and eliminate them.
It's interesting because I know from the Full Disclosure Now conference, they have the guys that are MK Ultra, the guys that believe that they're
Mhm.
super soldiers, and one of them lives here in Tampa, and he and I, Drago is his name, and he and I go back and forth every once in a while. But I would love to have him on because if he could tell you some of the things he says, I mean, sometimes I have to say, is this? It's hard for me to discern, but I know he's telling me the truth to what he believes.
Yeah,
But
because his
he'll tell you there's a whole classification of like soldiers that are dogmen.
yeah,
He'll straight up tell you that. And it's like
he's been his mind's been messed up with so much. It's you can. It's like talking to John Lear. Remember talking to John Lear?
yeah,
About 5 to 10% of what he said take for as true. Anybody
Yeah.
from that side and that hard line, you got to be able to decipher the pieces that they're giving you.
Well, see,
Yeah, it's funny.
I
You
actually,
do with it from there.
before I started on the Wonderful World of Weirdness, and I was just doing the moderator thing with John, he had me do a story that I had in Kansas City about these strange stray, like hybrid looking dogs in Kansas City that I'd seen. And I'd seen them multiple times on the south side.
Okay, we got 30 seconds.
And I turn around and I put that story out there, and Kansas City Paranormal Investigation actually freaking said, "Oh, I've been here all my life, never seen that once," you know.
In fact, that's a hot spot.
And they don't want to admit that stuff. People have a hard
Here's
time with
countdown.
dogs.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're back live and on the radio side right now.
And we're back. Welcome back to everybody listening. This is the last segment of the Vixen's Vault for tonight. It is April the 1st, 2026, 10:29 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Welcome back to the show. And, before we get going, I got to tell you all something. Again, we were talking about what to you might be a mishmash of conversation, but to us, it's things that we talk about all the time. But we were talking about, like, Dogman and the military aspects of what that particular crypto might be. It's a very interesting topic because sometimes some of these things seem so far-fetched. Like Roger was just saying, he had an encounter that he was talking about in Kansas City and how a paranormal group based out of Kansas City was telling him, no, that's not true. And I think that, number one, that's probably because they don't want to be seen as too far. In other words, it's to them, some things are just so hard to prove or so unbelievable that to even give any credit to it at all would just make them look like idiots. But what I've come to find out in 30 plus years of being in those fields and seeing the things I've seen and heard and the people I've talked to, sometimes it's the most far-fetched, absolutely insane thing that you're told that is the absolute truth. And that is kind of a rule of thumb. Like the craziest theory somebody could possibly tell you ends up being the actual truth. And I kind of look at that in everything we see now, where I say, if they say that this is a truth, I got to look at the polar opposite of what they're saying and start digging into whether there's any relative fact or even a nodule of truth to the exact opposite of what they're saying. That's how I have to deal with things nowadays, with news, with anything, because that seems to be the reality we live in. We are told one thing when the absolute polar opposite is true. So when they say the moon is a natural object, yep, I'm going to start digging in to whether the moon could possibly be a completely unnatural object, totally created by something that is not of nature. And I'm not. I notice I did not say by mankind, because I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case. Why? Because for how many decades were we told that we are the only life in the universe? And how many times have we been told that? Yeah, well, the statistics say that there might be another planet like Earth out there. That the fact is we're probably the only Goldilocks planet out there. Yeah, well, again, for how many decades, you people who are Americans, how many decades were we told that General George Custer was an absolute American hero? Completely an American hero.
And be careful, you're gonna
And
get
yet,
Mark mad. Mark Edworthy loves Custard. He thinks he's cool.
Well,
oh God.
no, but that's just
Lord,
about the
Custard.
perspective, really.
But everybody will remember opening up your history text, because he was a standard in all of the history texts when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And literally portrayed every time the hero that lost his life at Little Bighorn. I mean, we all know the epic battle of Little Bighorn, but what actually happened leading up to Little Bighorn is a very, very, very different story than what you're told or taught.
Well, see, I have a lot of respect for Cromwell too. I think he was actually a hero when it came to England, and
Which one?
Cromwell, the one who freed England before they decided
That's
to go
Oliver?
back in, before England went back into slavery under the monarchy.
Yeah.
Slavery, but
Yeah.
You actually
remember the 5 year tyrants they became.
It's a matter of perspective,
What I find funny about the British, though, what I really find funny about your government, again, we based our Constitution off your Magna Carta. And it's really interesting because what I see happening in England now is like almost a realization of the English people that, oh, wait, we had a monarchy that was an absolute ruler. We said, no, 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 we cannot bloody well have this. So we traded out and we brought in representation from the people. We went socialist. And now we've got a government that's actually wielding more power than the monarchy did, and it's not listening to its people. So y'all kind of ended up in the same square you started out with, except now it's common people doing exactly what the monarchy was doing that got them thrown out.
These things will change. After all, May the 7th is the local elections. And that is, I can predict that's going to be really damaging for the government, which could actually result in Starmer needing to resign, potentially.
Well, hopefully, y'all are using voting systems that are not like the ones we were using, because you might be surprised by your results if you're not.
Don't use Dominion. Don't use Dominion,
in this
sir.
country. The voting system is still a manual process.
Well,
nice.
With England, it's not just the voting system. Like I've unraveled a couple of things about the monarchy. Like the House of Lords is actually ran by the monarchy themselves. They're appointed by elitists and not voted in.
Actually, not the monarchy. Yeah. There's a move to when Blair moved during Blair's time. A majority of the hereditary peers was removed, which only resulted in something like 90 hereditary peers. This government is planning to remove all hereditary pairs. Problem with that is that you are going to create a system of cronyism. I've already heard in the last couple of days, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, is going to be nominated to be a peer. And that's
Well, you have people in the House of Lords that aren't even a participant in the House of Lords. Like just because they were born into a family, they're
a royal family. Yep.
They're a part of it.
But the argument is that well, there's two arguments there. You've got experts in the field, or whatever.
Name them.
You've got actual industry leaders in the House of Lords.
I've actually looked at that. I've found nobody there.
Understanding of history. You've got an understanding of this providence.
We have experts who were voted into office though too. Like we have a lot of experts that were. I mean, more people were voted into Congress that were attorneys than anybody else in the history of America in the last, I'd say, 50 years.
Here's the thing though. We can't. Okay, so Americans, we can't. I give Mark crap all the time, but I really can't give Mark crap. Because honest to God, we have a system that, again, we fought a war to get away from a monarchy, fought a second war, went right back under their shoe again. And I've said, if you actually trace the lineage of our presidents, we have more blood relations to the British monarchy than we possibly could know what to do with, including Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. I mean, so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, literally. So how do we end up here? We have two.
It was always here, though. You see, and I bring up John Jay all the time for a reason, because like during the time that we had our revolution, he was actually just before that, he was trying to make negotiations with England so that they could settle this peacefully and we could still stay a part of England. And he didn't even change his mind until after the revolution started. And this is the same man that created frickin' the Department of Justice. Okay. Yep. And when you think Washington is the city that holds all the power, you better think again, because it's New York. That's why
there's a lot of talk about Canada joining the US. Just a small digger, Roger. Why wouldn't the US want to join the greatest nation that's ever been?
Oh, the United States.
Yours?
Yes.
Right.
The sun never sets.
The empire.
Oh yeah.
It's the empire.
Yep. Oh boy. But I mean, literally, it's
what we're not going to talk about the tri-points of power. The Vatican, D.C., and where else?
City of London.
Yep.
And we're talking about the real city of London too.
Yeah, the square.
That's the thing, and I think D.C. Again, there's so many little signs you see that things are amiss. Things are not quite what they're telling you. The construction of the ballroom in DC, and the fact that now you finally have some press saying, well, maybe it's not got to do with a ballroom. Oh, hello, Captain Obvious. You think? You really think that Trump would really give a rat's ass whether or not you liked it, whether or not he built a ballroom? No, and then he would block you from videoing anything to do with the construction because he's building a ballroom? And that senators would absolutely go bonkers over a ballroom when they build basketball courts, bowling alleys, you name it. Each president has put something utterly ridiculous in the White House, and nobody has said a word.
I've made the argument that the ballroom idea isn't so ridiculous. It's another venue to entertain foreign dignitaries.
It's not. It's not. It's in the same area of the White House where we know that there are tunnels that go underneath that area. I'm telling you,
but
they're
it could
clearing
be
out
used
certain
as
things.
it could be used as a press room. It could be used as a
Oh, I think eventually it will be, but I think it's been in use as something very different. And it's being cleaned out, renovated, and going to be rebooted as something different and more plausible to the American people and what we believe our culture stands for. Not that it is what our culture stands for anymore, because right now we have a Supreme Court where we have justices who say, I can't define what a woman is. Okay, well, you're retarded and you need to go back to school. Because really,
You
to say
need.
something like that, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Do you need to know what a woman is? I can.
Oh my God, I can't believe she said that.
I can tell
That
you.
lady does.
I can.
The
I can
lady
tell you
does.
guys. You want to hear? Oh yeah.
Family
boy.
friendly, Roger.
Oh,
Forget
okay,
it.
okay.
okay, well, remember YouTube.
Made my heart beat. It's made my heart beat twice when just thinking
Enough,
about.
Roger.
Oh boy.
Did you say
Oh, boy.
heartbeat or heartbeat?
But
Hockey
I mean,
or
think about what we're going through right now. Think about what SCOTUS, okay, the greatest court in our land, SCOTUS, the kings of justice and queens. Okay, the decisions that we're waiting on right now. We're waiting on transgenderism decisions. We're waiting on things that really it's insane to think that this is in front of the greatest court in the land. Okay, that's supposed to mat out justice. And here they are discussing how people can speak. The whole reason they're in play is to defend the First Amendment, not tell us what we can and cannot say. It's to defend our ability to say what we want and then deal with either the good ramifications or the bad ramifications of our statements. Allow society to decide. Not a law, society. That is the whole reason behind the First Amendment. That's why everybody here went absolutely bonkers when Israel started doing the flex and saying, well, we think that you, the United States, need to make laws about anti-Semitism. And if anybody says anything bad about Israel's government, that's considered anti-Semitic. Oh, excuse you the hell out of me.
Right.
I'm sorry.
It's not
I
your
don't believe
country.
this is the United States of Israel. Bugger off. Goodbye. And we'll decide the way this works. But no, we have justices sitting on that court right now who literally cannot tell you what a woman is. It's the most insanely stupid stuff I've ever seen in my life. It's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. These are supposed to be positions of absolute power, positions of people who have studied law their entire life, and yet here they are up there making ridiculous statements that make them look, stupider than a kindergartner. At least a kindergartner can tell you what a boy is and what a girl is.
I'm pretty sure AI could do it too.
oh no.
Let's replace them with AI.
It's just.
He said this
Don't
before.
even push that.
They did it in Buck Rogers. Why can't they do it now?
Because you don't hold AI responsible for anything because they're a computer.
No, because AI is only as good as the junk that's put in.
That's
AI,
true.
it's junk in, junk out, or good in, good out. AI is only as good as the information it is fed. So whoever feeds the AI now controls everything. It cannot work like that. End of statement.
Don't put them in charge of anything.
The thing about the Supreme Court too is, the thing that's really important to understand is they're supposed to interpret the law, and the Constitution actually. They're supposed to interpret the Constitution, the constitutional laws, and they have to make sure that those laws are constitutionally correct.
Correct.
Now,
that's it.
When it comes down to the Bill of Rights, I agree with the Bill of Rights being added in, but I also understand the history behind the Bill of Rights versus the Constitution, the actual concrete. Okay, and I've been a little lenient here lately because I've reread through it, and it's been a while since I've checked it out. Okay, yeah, they did incorporate it into the Constitution, but the thing of it is how far does it go after the Bill of Rights? Do you turn around and allow those other amendments afterwards to be added into the Constitution? Because those aren't codified.
Yep.
Okay,
Well,
the Bill of Rights is codified, and so is the Constitution, but those aren't. So those can be changed and messed around with all they want.
well, and here's the other thing that you got to think about. How many times have they switched out amendments? And I keep saying that we have a problem with the Constitution because we did have amendments that were added to the Constitution. The 13th Amendment is always my big sticking point. I'm like, guys, there's three different versions of the 13th Amendment. We have the current 13th Amendment. We have the 13th Amendment that came about, let's see, that was the Tona Act, Titles of Nobility. So that was somewhere before, I think that was like mid 18th century, early 18th century, and it was ratified. And it was included into the Constitution, like Maine's Constitution had it. Multiple constitutions had the Tona 13th Amendment, Titles of Nobility. And then it suddenly disappeared. It was gone. And then suddenly we had lawyers running for office. And I said the reason that happened is because Esquire is what? It is a title of nobility. You have the British bar, which our bar association, the American bar, is run under.
Are you
Basically American lawyers
Yeah,
are under the British bar.
It's
Yes.
related to slavery and involuntary servitude.
That was the 13th
That's-
Amendment. Oh, it's the Conlin. Is it Conlin? The Conlin Amendment. It was in like 1861, but that was the amendment where they they were trying to change out the. And again, this is why I always say the Civil War is not what you thought it was. What you're taught that it is. It was not about slavery. Not realistically, it was about money. Okay, because there was an amendment put forth where, yeah, the Union went to the South and said, okay, you can keep your slaves. But here's the deal. You got to pay us 40% tax to have your slaves. And the South said, are you out of your cotton picking minds? Why would we pay a tax on our slaves when our slaves are in the Constitution? Who are you to tell us that we cannot have them? Who are you to tell us that you're going to charge us a tax on our slaves? And then we, of course, after that, it was game on and Fort Sumter happened. And next thing you knew, we were at war. But that was an actual amendment that was put in, and the North says, oh, no, we are totally abolitionists. We do not believe in slavery. Bull effing, bull cocky. Because y'all came up with that amendment where you said you can have your slaves, but we want a 40% tax. Why was that a problem? It was a problem because the South could produce agriculturally and produce things that were absolutely deportable at massive profit levels. Cotton was huge, and they didn't have to pay wages. The North was paying wages in their factories and getting buried because the South was able to do so much more with manual labor that they didn't have to pay for. The only expenses they really covered for the slaves was food, housing, clothing, the basic necessities. The North did not have that option. So what did they say? Well, either we're going to just destroy your industry and go down and buy up all your cotton fields. So either you pay a 40% tax or we're just going to come take it all. And that's what happened. That was why the war was fought. And again, people can romanticize it as much as they want. They can do as much propaganda re-speaking as they want. The war was about money. It was about production. It was about the industrial age and big business. That's what our war was about. That's what our Civil War was fought over. I mean, and again, it's a horrible truth, but unless we learn in this country to live with our horrible truths, we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to advance beyond it. We're just going to get tied further and further into the net. And that's what's happened. We have spun and spun and to the point where now society here, we're tied up in a net. And we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that our politicians are lying to us. We know beyond the shadow of a doubt that things are not what we're being told they are. People figured COVID out relatively quickly, because I thought to myself, if COVID had happened in like the 1940s or 50s, yeah, the whole rah, rah, rah America crowd, our government would never, in fact, it was our oldest generation, the ones that were getting killed off first. They were the ones that were saying our government would never do that to us. Oh, yes, they would. Oh, yes, they would. You were expendable. Especially if you're not paying taxes anymore and you're living off
Ask
a
an
big
Indian.
fat retirement. Well, that's the thing. That generation, the generation that got hit the hardest, were literally living off their what? Retirements. Their retirements that were what? Funded in many ways by a half-half with companies. They were considered a huge bane of existence. I mean, they try everything in their power to get people's retirements away from them. If you have to go into a nursing home, 90% of the time here in the States, your insurance is not going to cover your stay at the nursing home in full. And what they're going to demand in actual exchange for your stay at the nursing home is your flipping retirement.
They're gonna launch your properties too. They'll end up having you put liens on your property, everything you own.
Yep.
And I also bring this up because everybody keeps forgetting it, but let's talk about the New Deal. The Great New Deal. They're just
FDR.
gonna and that's horrible.
Well, he was the bane to me, he was the bane of existence. FDR is probably my most hated president because he literally lied his way through World War II, lied his way into why we got into World War II. You remember when Biden was threatening to stack the Supreme Court? Mm-hmm. He got that from FDR.
Yep.
Because initially the Supreme Court, when the New Deal was brought before the Supreme Court, because they were saying it was unconstitutional, and it is. The SCOTUS said, no, this is not constitutional. FDR says, okay, picks up the phone and says, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lower the retirement age of you guys and retire all of you and restack the court with who I want. And the New Deal will pass. So either you pass it or I retire all of you. And they passed it. But it was not constitutional. And still to this day, it's not. Neither is Social Security. All right. With that, I got to start closing out the show, though. And this is what I mean, folks, when I say don't ever believe everything you're taught in the history books. Go do the homework. Because the homework's going to tell you a different story 99% of the time. With that, we are out of here. Vicky, Mark, Roger, and of course, producer Mark. As always, thank you for joining me. I really thoroughly enjoy it. Love having you guys here. I think Ralphie he never did get back on with us, but Ralphie, if you can hear me, if you're listening, thank you for joining us earlier. With that, I'm out of here for the night. Hopefully we all survive Easter weekend. That would be great. That would be really nice. I'd love to hear what Trump said. I'm going to get off here and go look. But with that, everybody, have a great evening. Look skyward, because I don't think we've seen the last of fireballs. Talk to y'all next week.
All right. Thank you. Good night. Happy Easter.
All
Happy
right.
Easter. And happy Passover.
Thanks,
But
everybody.
yeah.
Are we going to do an after show?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to jump off. Like I said, I've been.
I'm pretty beat.
Dude, I have had no air conditioning since like Friday, so this is like, it just got put in today, so like I had one of those heat headaches.
Go sit under it.
Yep. Well, now it's a freaking igloo in there because of course Rafi's got it set at like 65.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
all right. But, catch you guys all later.
Talk to you guys
later. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed. We will take you back to regular broadcasting on live with 24/7 live with Roger Hansen. Naroki 5 just said that he may be starting up a show here in a little bit. If he does, we will kick in on there and get that going as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Go check out Draegus production on Kick, Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and DLive, I believe. I'm not sure if he's still doing DLive, but check him out there if he is. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and end the stream. But first, before I do, I want to switch everything back over to where it needs to be. So let's do this.